a woman can walk freely on the roads at night, that day we could say that India has achieved independence. So said the father of the nation, Mahatma Gandhi. And ladies and gentlemen, it still holds true. Do the women of independent India feel safe and secure in our cities and villages? Have Indian women truly attained freedom? Let's begin a storyboard on reclaiming the narrative for a safer world with people who have experienced things up close and personal. So let me now take the privilege of inviting on stage our panelists. Let's begin with welcoming Ms. Deepa Gopalan Vadva, retired diplomat who was the first Indian woman ambassador to Qatar and Japan. Let's welcome Ms. Deepa Gopalan Vadva, ladies and gentlemen, with a huge round of applause. Ladies and gentlemen, from the women to the women, a huge round of applause. Welcome, Ms. Vadva. I'd like to now invite the trans rights activist and Bharatnatyam dancer, Ms. Lakshmi Narayan Tripathi. Let's welcome her on stage with a huge round of applause. Warm welcome, ma'am. May I now invite the only gentleman on this panel, the former Director General of Police, Mr. Prakash Singh. Let's welcome him on stage with a huge round of applause, please. A very warm welcome to you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to take the privilege of inviting on stage the Chairperson of Delhi Commission for Women, Ms. Swati Maliwal. Can we please welcome our panelists with a huge round of applause. Ms. Swati Maliwal joining us on stage. And I think Ms. Maliwal is going to be joining us on stage shortly. With that, I welcome all of you once again, panelists, and I'd like to now call, Ms. Aarti Jaiman, the founder of Gurgaon Ki Awaaz Community Radio Station, to moderate this very important narrative. Warm welcome, ma'am. And with that, I would now hand over the proceedings to our moderator of this session, Ms. Aarti Jaiman.
Good evening. Welcome to all our panelists. I'm really looking forward to a really very interesting discussion on something that affects all of us, men and women, about women being safe everywhere. I'm also going to be working as a bit of a timekeeper, so if you don't mind, I'm going to start like making faces and things like that, if I do that. Women's safety is something that I don't think there's anybody who doesn't quite know what we're talking about. Whether it is inside our own homes, I think every woman, whether it's inside our own homes, in schools, in colleges, on the road, in public transport, inside DTC buses, or whichever public transport you've used anywhere else, we have experienced it. The look, the touch, the feeling uncomfortable, feeling unsafe, and worse. Coming back completely shaken that I don't think I'm going to be ready to step out of the house the next day, and still stepping out. And I think as a radio person, it's something that we talk about a lot on radio, and it becomes very easy to talk about it because there's no visual. There's nobody looking at me. I can even anonymously share my story. And one of the things that we started getting into was what was the mindset of that man who makes an inappropriate pass? What is the mindset of a boy who catcalls? Or who just gives a comment which makes me feel uncomfortable? And I remember we were having this discussion on radio, and young boys I must say very bravely, came forward and explained, we were asking them, दिमाग में क्या चल रहा होता है? जब वो सीटी मारी, जब वो comment मारा, what were you thinking? And we actually had listeners, most of them were older listeners, and said, ये क्या कर रहे हैं, आप सिखा रहे हैं लोगों को कि कैसे छेड़छाड़ की जाती है. So I want to kind of just put that out there, because I remember hearing various people talk in their videos as well, that I just want to put it out there that maybe there's a mindset that we really need to address, you know. So I'd like Deepa Gopalan Wadhwa to start first, because she's a woman career diplomat who has worked in various different environments, and as somebody in a position of authority representing India, has had women in distress come to her looking for assistance, and it has been her responsibility to how to respond to a woman who maybe among the millions of women who are Indians, who are outside of India, either because they're living there or they're working there, or the tourists who come to India and they experience an assault, or they experience being unsafe in India, and again, it is somebody who is a diplomat who has to respond, because not only to ensure that that person gets justice, but to also ensure that, you know, this does not, kind of affect the image of India. So, Deepa.
Thanks, Aarti. I'm sure a lot of you wonder what a diplomat is doing here talking about women's safety. Of course, it's something that affects all of us. But before I start saying anything about my own perspective and the experiences that I have, I want to start to say that the issue of women's safety and violence against women is there worldwide. It is not an Indian phenomenon. I mean, this is really true. I recall very early in one of my postings in Europe reading a report which said in a particular country, and I will not name it, but a very well-known country in Europe, that 33% of the women, 1/3 of the women had at some time or the other, they had experienced violence. So this really is not something that is only Indian. And I think we have to take a lot of pride in what we've done, because this whole consciousness of the fact of the need for women's safety is being brought out there in the public. And there are a lot of women who lead this whole effort, so, who are leading this. And therefore, I have to say that we have much to be proud about in India. So how did one come face to face with this issue outside? Now, you would have seen a UN report recently which said that about 17.5 million Indians, and with the largest number from any country, who live abroad. And it's 17.5 million, a lot of them are women. They go as wives of NRIs, they go as professionals, and they also go as blue-collar workers. So I think one of the first things that we face in embassies is problems that these women face. Now, they have a double problem. They have a double whammy, because they're in an alien environment. They do not have the family support structures. They're probably in a very, in a strangely legal environment which they do not understand. And yet they are facing all kinds of issues of violence, of, discrimination and so on. And where do they come? And I can't say all of them come, but we encourage them to come to the embassy, where we help them with legal advice. We tell them where to go. We even have a fund that is there, which has been, which the government has made available for us to be able to repatriate those in trouble. But I must say that the NRI, the wives who go out, are now, I think there's more and more news about them, and people are now aware of what they can do and what needs to be done for them. But I found the most vulnerable section were those domestic workers that we sent out. We sent out women from India, from the little villages from India, who go out to countries to work in houses in completely strange environments. And I have seen some terrible brutality that is meted out to them in those countries. And what do we do then? And they come to us, and it's not because I'm a woman. I know I have some colleagues in this audience here who have also been in similar situations as me, where we make sure that they get police attention, that, that we take them in. Sometimes we take them into our own houses. We prepare, safe houses for them, so that finally, two things. One is that they get, what is their due, because very often they're not paid, and secondly, that they can go back. So this is one part of what we face. There's another part which is strangely male. It's not female. We have a lot of male blue-collar workers outside. Now, this is the head of the family who's going and working outside. His family is back there without a man. And they, again, find themselves terribly vulnerable, because you have a wife and you have sisters, mothers, daughters, and when they realize that the man is not there, these people are, I think, just open to harassment with people around them. And in these cases, what we do is they come to us. I mean, again, it's not very often. I wish they could do it more, more people would come forward. But we do have open houses where the embassy just opens its doors to anyone who has a problem. And I've had men come before me and say that, look, this is what happened to my wife, or this is what is happening to my daughter, and what can you do? And what I can do, and we have a senior police officer here, and I must say, I'm very happy that what we do is we ring up the SP of the district, or we ring up the collector, and we make sure at least that in some of the states are more responsive than the others, and I would like to say in particular, Kerala is very responsive. You know, that they would go and make sure that these families do get some kind of protection. The third is, as Aarti mentioned, are the foreign tourists who come to India. You know, again, we hear these horrible stories of women tourists who come and what has happened to them. That one is, of course, I think as a woman, I do feel that we have to ensure that they get justice. Very often they just run back, they go back to their countries to make sure that the whole process of justice is seen through. And the other thing is the image of India. Now, actually, all of us out in embassies there are really, what are we doing? We're making sure that there's a positive image of India around the world. We're explaining India to the world. And here we are faced with a situation like this. I could tell you what happened after the Nirbhaya case. You know, I was in Japan, I was ambassador in Japan, and it was in December, I recall, and that was a peak tourist season. And you know, we immediately had a 25% decrease in applications for visas. People just didn't want to travel to India. They just thought it was one of the most unsafe places. And this goes beyond tourism. It also goes into, you know, companies wanting to invest in India. When they do a risk assessment, they look at India. What kind of a country is India? Can we take our families there? And therefore, you know, as a diplomat, sometimes one has to put things in perspective and say, yes, there are issues. One isn't going to deny it, but there are also remedies within the system. So these are some of the experiences that one has had, and you know, I'm very happy to share them with you and be part of today's program. Thank you.
Thank you, Deepa. That's a perspective that I think many of us haven't thought about. I'd like to move on to Lakshmi. We are going to keep it really tight, and despite ignore the timer, it's going to be only 5 minutes because we need to kind of wrap up in 15 minutes. But Lakshmi, I really would like to hear you, especially because our own work with the transgender community on radio has shown that there's such a huge silence, and we forget how vulnerable members of the transgender community are, and how if they go to authorities, you know, they're not taken seriously.
See, Jayashree Mahakal, my own journey, if we go to see that in 1999 we started the social activism for our rights, our dignity, everything. 2014 we got our, as an Indian, status by this Honorable Supreme Court. But the biggest problem, what even Madam was telling, and now even I always say that, it's not about biological women or trans women. It's femininity, basically, against patriarchy. And men are not taught properly, and that is because this entire region of Asia Pacific was ruled by we were colonized. And the mindset of colonization is still in our education system. Our education system is still so colonized that we are not getting out of it. And where you're teaching gender balance, gender respect. For trans women, it's like we are toys in the hands of patriarchy. You're molested, you're insulted, and your cases are not taken. Courts just say that in Pune, there were courts even say that it is impossible that you have been molested, you know. You're killed. And then we talk about human rights, then we talk about, means what rights you're talking about? First of all, even after the 2014, the Supreme Court had said 6 months. Still the bill is pending. Still many states don't even recognize to work. We are the last community in this country who got a right as an Indians. And still it is not even a fraction is being done yet. And then there are so many issues. Now recently I've come, 2 days ago I came from Prayagraj, and there was a very big issue. And from 3 days now, I have been continuously talking to different police officials, and nothing has been done yet. In spite of sitting in their office, I being so famous, sitting over there, it's a religious, I'm Acharya Mahamandleshwar now. But still, even me going there and speaking after 3 days, action is not taken. Then what kind of a society I'm telling? We sit in AC rooms, we talk about so many things. But at the ground, still it is the same old story. Still people call you Chakka, Mamu, Good, Hijra. Hijra is a respected word, but it is turned into a complete bad word. You know, and there is so much of violence. Means one Nirbhaya happened, everybody was with candles. In my community, there are thousands of Nirbhaya. Thousands of Nirbhaya, which you can't even imagine that amount of way how they have been raped and killed, and they are not even considered as human beings. When the society treats us as a transparent object, it's difficult for Lakshmi to be treated as transparent because I don't assure, that I'm there. Hello, good evening, everybody. Are you there? See, still I'm transparent for many. The whole room is silent. So this is... So when even I asked from you, hello everybody, good evening, nobody even came out say good evening Lakshmi, no. So it is, of course, some people would be intrigued after looking at me, but the fact still remains that we haven't taught our coming generation what is gender, what is sexuality. Our forefathers, our ancestors were much more advanced than this generation when we call ourselves Indians, because that time we were respected. That time, every sexuality had a space for them. We were not judged on the scales of, naitikta is what? Morality, which was injected in our society by the Britishers. Even the Mughals were better, They gave us positions. What kind of a society? How much has been changed? Even today also, somebody kills me at a gunpoint, if I get killed also, then it doesn't matter. The state won't even put in effort to fight my own case, which is responsibility of state. And when you talk about protection of women, dignity of women, even I am a woman. Why I am molested? Because I was feminine, right from because my femininity, Lakshmi Narayan Tripathi was not molested as a child, or I lost my everything when I was the age of 6. Because I was feminine, so I was molested by somebody who thought I was an object for his satisfaction. And now there are so many laws which is after Nirbhaya, there is so much of changes. But how much education we have put that kind of an education? How many women know their own right, that this is my right. After marriage, my husband cannot do this to me. Much of the most educated families have much more atrocities towards women. Access to justice is not available over here because we are not taught what is my right. Then where I'll go and ask justice? These whole issues, what changes should come in the curriculum of education, whether higher secondary to college, that girls and every Indian should know what is the right of one person. Then only change will come. Thank you.
Thank you, Lakshmi. I think what I really took away from that was your word of being transparent, जब आप acknowledge ही नहीं करोगे, कोई अस्तित्व ही नहीं दे रहे हो, तो उसके बाद आगे कैसे हकों की बात करेंगे? You are being treated as a non-person. And I think that's very important to keep in mind as we talk. And also, what Lakshmi referred to as, when incidents are happening routinely, you're expecting the state to stand up for you because the constitution grants you those rights. You're expecting the police machinery to stand up for you, to support you. But what happens is you start becoming a victim all over again, even after you've already been through a certain trauma. So I'll come to you, Prakash ji. Given your long experience in the police system and also pushing for reforms within the police, can you please talk a little bit about the police's role in women's safety in 5 minutes?
Talking of police role in women's safety, I would like to start with the observations made by Justice J.S. Verma, who headed the committee appointed by the Government of India in the wake of the Nirbhaya incident to suggest appropriate amendments in the criminal law to make the country safer for policemen, for women in general. You see, at the very outset in the introductory part of the report, he says that the root cause of the problem is because there is failure of governance, leading to erosion of laws. That is the root cause of the problem. And then he goes on to say that as far as the existing laws of the country are concerned, they are quite appropriate to deal with the situation, not only with respect to women, but for any kind of offenses which are being committed. The problem is their enforcement by a credible law enforcement agency. We have law enforcement agencies, but how far are they credible? How far can we trust them? How far are they impartial? How far are they objective? These are the questions. There is no dearth of laws. There are any number of laws. You have Anti-Dowry Act, you have Immoral Trafficking Act, you have POCSO, you have prevention of harassment at workplace, etc., etc. There are a whole lot of laws on the subject. The point is, we are not able to enforce these laws in letter and spirit in the manner we should be able to. And why are we not able to enforce them? There are a whole lot of problems, I'll come to those problems a little later. But it is a fact that women's safety has become a problem in the country. It is a fact. There is a UN report on the subject which was published only this year. It talks of, as we heard just now, that this is a global problem. And that UN report quotes the percentage of women who suffer some kind of harassment in different countries across the world. And India is not alone. I mean, you can see it's a global problem. But that doesn't mean that we sort of gloss over the problem or say that because it's a global problem, so let's not bother about it. It's a problem and we have to tackle it. It was really, in fact, not a problem in a country like India. It has become a problem due to a variety of reasons. I mean, the constraint of time doesn't permit me to go into the details. Suffice it to say that there has been an erosion in our values which we inherited from our parents in the family, values which we inherited or which we learned from the teachers in schools and colleges, values which we imbibed from the politicians of the country. I mean, imagine the kind of politicians which we had at the time of independence. I mean, like Dr. Rajendra Prasad, Radhigopalachari, and compare them with the caliber of the politicians today. I mean, the Association of Democratic Reforms has been publishing year after year. They have been publishing reports about the legislators that we have, the parliamentarians that we have, and their criminal background. What are we doing about this phenomenon which is going to overwhelm our democracy? If you have stalkers and molesters and rapists sitting in the parliament, what do you expect? What do you expect the people to do? See, they are unfortunately, they have become our role models. Not Mahatma Gandhi, not Shivaji, not, so many other, Arvindo Ghosh or Subhash Bose. They look at these politicians who have risen to power, who have accumulated wealth, and they say, well, this is the road I should follow. This is the road I should traverse. That is a problem. I mean, the erosion in our cultural values, which, as I said, we inherited within the families, in our educational institutions, and from the political system, which in fact affects, governs, and influences the entire spectrum of our life.
So, Mr. Singh, can I just stop you there? I'm sorry, because we really have to wrap up in 5 minutes.
Okay,
and
if
I
the
just
time
want,
limit is over, I have nothing more to say.
But thank you. And that takes me to, sorry we're having to make it so tight because the next bit has to start right away. But Swati, you have been in the public eye for actually, being in Delhi Commission of Women and heading it and being the place where people reach out to women in distress and reaching out, and you actively working for women who are the most vulnerable. So can you talk a bit about, what your role is? But again, I'm sorry, 5 minutes.
Firstly, I want to say that it's very, very unfortunate that even in today's time, we are called the rape capital of the world. Last year, an 8-month-old baby was very, very brutally raped in the capital state of Delhi. She was raped in such a manner that she had to undergo 3 operations. When I went and met her in the hospital, I still remember her cries, her shrieks, and the amount of blood that was flowing. I sat on a hunger strike last year which lasted for 10 days. On the 10th day of my hunger strike, finally the government passed a law which made punishments for child rape really stringent. And it also assured me that within 3 months, police resources across the country, police accountability across the country, as well as fast-track courts would be increased. But it's very, very unfortunate that now it's been 1.5 years and none of that has happened. If you look at the state of Delhi, Delhi police has been demanding 66,000 police personnel for the past 13 years. 3,000 came when I sat on a hunger strike. But that is it. What does that mean? That means you go to any police station across the state, across anywhere in the country, you will see that each and every police station functions at half its sanctioned strength. आधे पे काम करेंगे तो काम कैसे होगा? Second, the accountability of the police. The central government has been trying to create a software to digitize the functioning of the police across the country for the past 13 years. I'm a software engineer. I know it takes less than 6 months to create a software like that. Then why is it that it has been so long? Why there is no accountability? And third, the fast-track courts. तारीख पे तारीख एक लड़की की कमर तोड़ देती है. Yes, I am the DCW chief and with great responsibility I want to say, सच है बिल्कुल कि एक बार पहले कुछ आदमी लड़कियों का रेप करते हैं और फिर पूरा सिस्टम मिलके उसके साथ रेप करता है. The Delhi Commission for Women, in the past 8 years before I came, had handled 1 case. Now in 3 years, we've handled over 55,000 cases. We have attended 2.15 lakh calls on our 181 helpline, 70,000 ground visits, 33,000 court cases we've assisted sexual assault survivors in, over 200 recommendations to both the center and the state, and we are the only commission in the country which functions on Saturdays. We are also functioning on Sundays, nights, but what is the end result? एंड रिजल्ट ये है कि मेट्रो स्टेशन से रात में जब मैं उतरती हूँ तो मुझे खुद डर लगता है, मुझे लगता है कि मेरे साथ कुछ हो जाएगा. तो बहुत दुख की बात है. इट इज़ समथिंग विच इज़ वेरी वेरी शेमफुल. द दिल्ली कमीशन फॉर वुमेन, वी आर गोइंग इन द नाइट्स. हम लोग रेड कर रहे हैं, कभी स्पा में रेड कर रहे हैं, कभी जीबी रोड में रेड कर रहे हैं. 15-15 साल की बच्चियाँ निकाल रहे हैं. 7-year-old गर्ल वी जस्ट सेव फ्रॉम जीबी रोड अ मंथ बैक. एंड लास्ट this entire month, I have conducted several raids in spa centers across the country, and I have found across Delhi, and I have just found one thing. All of them are garbs of sex rackets. We found school girls in closed doors with 2 naked men in these centers. The police says nothing has happened. Police doesn't want to register an FIR. I have to summon the Delhi the DCP. After that, an FIR is filed. Till now, despite 4 FIRs being filed in this matter, under the pressure of the commission, not even a single arrest has happened, to the extent that those people have the audacity to threaten me. मुझे बोलते हैं कि अपना तहखाना दिखा, अपना ये कर, वो रात में तुझे भूलने नहीं दूंगा. That is the kind of messages I am getting by spa owners on the Twitter and on social media. Condoms की photos जो हमने वहाँ पे ढूंढी वो लगा के they are trying to threaten me. My husband got death threats. I got death threats. 20 days earlier, I sent a complaint to the Delhi police, refused to register even an FIR. I had to again summon the Delhi police, after which now finally, after a delay of 20 days, 2 spa owners have been arrested. They tell me that you take security. Why should I take security? I don't want your mercy. I don't want your charity. I don't want any special treatment. I want to be treated like a normal girl. I am a normal girl and I will continue to fight in that manner. Because the day I become special, then God save Delhi. Because then I will also not feel any fear. I think this fear, which is a part of each and every woman who's sitting in this room, who lives in this country, I think this is something that is also our strength as well as our problems. I think we all need to come together. We need to take it head on. The Delhi Commission for Women, we are working left, right, and center, day and night. I have lost all my personal life. I have lost everything to this work, but I will continue to work till my last breath because I think this is something that all of us need to do. I really appeal to everyone who is listening to me here. Please help the Commission. Please support us. Our email ID is livingpositive@gmail.com. If you have any ideas, any suggestion, any time, anything that you can help the Commission with in tackling this problem, please help us.
Thanks, Swati. I'm going to close this discussion. I would have ideally liked a more freewheeling, open discussion after this. We don't have the time. But I think what we can all take away is that all of us are eyes on the street. And all of us are the ones who turn away when we see somebody in distress. So I think all of us need to be responsible for all of our safety. So I think let's, on that note, at least kind of wake ourselves up and not turn away next time we see something. Thank you very much. Thank you to our panelists.